Good evening, high school football fans. This is High School Football America for March the 28th. I'm Jeff Fisher, host of the show and founder and editor-in-chief of High School Football America and highschoolfootballamerica.com. We took 3 weeks off, had a lot of business to do, some big announcements coming up for High School Football America. We'll have those in the next couple of weeks, but for now, sit back and enjoy what we think is a very, very entertaining show tonight, an educational show. But first, we want to bring in our proud sponsor, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, and they appreciate you for tuning in each and every Thursday and letting us share these great high school football stories with you. And they want to remind you that, like football, Frosted Flakes is another passion that you can share with your kids. Dads, whenever you're sharing that passion for the game, whether you're at a game with your kids, watching football on TV, in the front yard, at the park, throwing the football around, why not come back afterwards and do it over a bowl of Frosted Flakes? Again, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, proud sponsor of High School Football America. Another proud sponsor and partner with us here is Webleats, and they are in the middle of their camping season for sophomores and juniors, and I want to let you know what their schedule is coming up, and you can go to webleats.com to get your free profile. We've had Tim Curran, one of the co-founders, here on the show, and great company, and again, can't beat the word free in these tough economic times. But they've got several camps coming up here. The next one is set for April the 21st at Revolution Park in Charlotte, North Carolina. Again, go to webleats.com. They have their entire high school football combine camp tour schedule there for you. May 10th in Chicago at Elmhurst College. May 11th in Fort Wayne, Indiana at Manchester College. And then goes all the way through June 21st, making stops in Michigan, Detroit, in Indianapolis, in Louisville, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio, Marietta in Ohio, Columbus in Ohio, Cleveland in Ohio, and Hiram in Ohio. Again, go to webleats.com to learn more about their combine camp tour schedule. Also want to remind you that one of the top camps, and it's from my hometown of Easton, Pennsylvania, is coming up. They are the one of the biggest on the East Coast. Last year they set another record, and it is Lauren's First and Goal football camp set for Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. Last year, a record 2,105 campers in town for its 9th annual camp. This is an incredible camp because what happens is they bring in all kinds of coaches, top coaches from around the country. They volunteer their time, and it's all benefiting pediatric brain tumor research. Lauren's First and Goal dad, John Luce, who is an assistant coach at Lafayette, has put it together with his wife, and you need to check this out. This year's camp at Lafayette College will be held on June the 2nd. So how do you sign up? All you have to do is go to lawrencefirstandgoal.org, lawrencefirstandgoal.org to learn more. They also have a camp in Ohio, in Westerville, Ohio. That comes up on June the 22nd. So support them in whichever way you can. Love Webleats. We love Lauren's First and Goal. There's a lot of camps out there, but we believe that these two are top-notch when it comes to educating and helping student athletes. Want to remind everybody to join the High School Football America family, and again, we never go away. Yeah, we took 3 weeks off here, but that was to do a little business. But we keep putting the news out there on the website at highschoolfootballamerica.com, Twitter, acting, as the kind of the wire, if you will. Remember the Associated Press has its news wire. Well, our Twitter is kind of like our wire service that gives you news from around the country each and every day. And the way you join the family is quite simply by going to highschoolfootballamerica.com. At the top on the right there, you can see all the logos, how you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. We've got these shows, all of the High School Football America shows on iTunes, and you can join us by just clicking on the icons there. We also have a newsletter that we've started. You can join us with that by just going to the little, it's easy for you. All you have to do is you see the box, very top right side, it says join us, and that's the way you can become a member of the High School Football America family, and we appreciate each and everybody that comes on board. We're up over 1,400 followers on Twitter, and doing a lot of special stuff out here in Southern California, which of course is our home base as we head into year number 2, as we will once again be on AM 570 Fox Sports LA with our High School Football America SoCal show. But we're doing some special stuff out here. We're posting schedules from throughout the area, and for those of you that don't know, The two-county area in Southern California of Los Angeles and Orange County, there are over 600 schools out here. So we are posting them up fast and furious. If you're a coach in the Southern California area, please feel free to email me at jeff@highschoolfootballamerica.com with your schedule. Would love to post it up there. We have them posted in alphabetical order. We've started doing some videos here out in Southern California, some preview stuff. A couple of weeks ago, we did La Mirada. La Mirada is a public school out here that's got 3 Division I kids on the roster this year. Big things expected out of the Matadors, and great 3-minute video up there that you can check out who these top athletes are. We also, last week, went to El Toro. We're going to be posting a video up over the weekend for that. El Toro was a top team in the South Coast League out here in Southern California last year, but they lost a lot of talent, including Utah recruit Connor Manning, who broke Matt Barkley's record in Orange County for yards passing. Of course, Barkley in the midst of being tested. Hopefully the shoulder is going to come back for Matt as the NFL draft comes upon us. So lots of cool stuff in Southern California. One other thing I want to tell you about that we're doing out here is the Stadium Project, which is really neat. Going around to some of the cool stadiums in Southern California and posting them up on the website at highschoolfootballamerica.com. To get all that, we have a special tab for Southern California in the navigation bar. It's SoCal/Fox Sports LA. We've got news, the scoreboard, rankings, playoffs, videos, players of the week, honor roll, coach of the week, the Stadium Project, and links to all the high school football programs that have websites out here. So we're proud to be heading into our second year in Southern California, loving it here. I haven't given up my Pennsylvania roots, but at the end of the day, it's been fun to be in SoCal here and learn about all the talent that comes out of this two-county region. As I said at the top, a great show tonight, an educational show. We will talk about some news from around the country, but we have 3 guests on the show. The first 2 will be joining me together. Jason Strunk, who writes The Turnaround, which is a great blog on highschoolfootballamerica.com. Jason is the head coach at Lubbock High School in Texas, and for the last year, Jason, who hails from my hometown back in Pennsylvania, has been talking about what he's been doing to turn around the Lubbock, Texas high school football program. Lubbock has a proud history of high school football, but heading into last year, 2012, the program hadn't seen the playoffs in Texas, nor a winning season since the mid-'70s. And last year they snapped their 37-year drought of making it to the playoffs as they finished 3-8. They didn't get to the 500 winning season, but nonetheless they snapped one of the streaks, and Jason has given us an inside look at the Lubbock, Texas high school football program in the Texas football craze state, or the football craze state of Texas, I should say. And Jason will join us tonight. He's blogging again. Again, go to highschoolfootballamerica.com. In the news tab, you pull down to the turnaround, but he's blogging, and he'll blog right through the 2013 season, and he's giving some great off-season information. They have a cutting-edge nutrition program set up with his assistant coach and nutrition coach, Neil Toll. So Jason Strunk and Neil Toll will be joining me in just a couple of minutes here to talk about what they're doing to make their athletes healthier. And, this has long-term effects. You start eating right now when you're an adult. Maybe it's the first step to taking care of some of the obesity problems out there. But Coach Strunk and Coach Toll coming up in a little bit. And then on the back half of the show, we have Kevin DeShazo from Fieldhouse Media. It's fieldhousemedia.net. And Kevin has created a company that its job is to go out there and provide social media education and monitoring services for student athletes and coaches. We all know that there's some issues out there in using social media. There's a right way and a wrong way. And Kevin DeShazo of Fieldhouse Media will be joining us on the back half of the show to talk about do's and don'ts and the best way to get yourself noticed and preserve your reputation and create an identity for yourself. That's coming up. Again, want to thank Kellogg's Frosted Flakes for making it all possible. Going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk nutrition, how to get your team. They say an army travels on its stomach. How do you get your football team to travel on a good stomach and have more energy and build more lean body mass as you go through the off season here in the weight room? Well, Jason Strunk and Coach Neil Toll from Lubbock High School will join us to talk about that and more. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
This portion of High School Football America brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. And it's probably a pretty good way to start the segment because for the first time ever on High School Football America, we're going to talk a little nutrition. And who we're going to do that with? Well, one of our friends of this show here, Jason Strunk, the head coach at Lubbock High School in West Texas, and his assistant coach and head of the nutrition program there, Neil Toll, both on the line right now to talk about the importance of nutrition and how it, maybe a football team really does travel on its stomach. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to hear from you.
Thanks for having us.
It's awesome to have you here. To be honest with you, I love Strunky, but it's good to have another voice out of Lubbock coming to us. But let's start with Jason first. And just to kind of set the scene here for our listeners, Jason has been writing the turnaround for us for the last about a year and a half, second and now going into his third year at Lubbock, talking about the turning around of a once proud program. Went 37 years without getting into the playoffs, and last year in the second year, Coach Strunk and his staff were able to turn things around, make the playoffs, and they've been doing it with some different things. And Coach Strunk is a coach from my neck of the woods in Pennsylvania, also been at Plant City in Florida, and now in Texas, so he's got a wide swath of states that he's coached in, and along the way he's picked up a lot of things, including a stop at Purdue when nutrition became a big thing. So let's kind of set the scene for Coach Toll and nutrition and how you really kind of brought it into the program, Jason.
Well, it was, coming out here, like I always say, talking to you and then writing in our blog that, Lubbock High is unique. There's different things here we have to do than I had to do, other places like Plant City. And one of the things was, we were undersized. So we had to find a way to catch up to people on the field, and normally do that through the weight room. Well, I didn't think that was cutting it for us after year one. We didn't win a game, so we started applying things I learned from Purdue, and I was at Purdue for a year and a half, what we did nutrition-wise. I started implementing that here, and I really, really felt that nutrition would be the extra thing we could do to really get us caught up on the field. And thankfully, I have a coaching staff that bought into it. And especially Coach Toll. Coach Toll is a Purdue grad himself, and he went through all the nutrition stuff at Purdue. So I thought it would be a great time to get things rolling and start implementing some nutrition facets in our program here. And thankfully, it worked out. I don't think without the nutrition things we do and the education we provide on it, I don't think we made the playoffs last year. That's how big of a deal it is to us here at Lubbock High, and we're going to continue doing that.
It certainly sounds that way. So Neil, let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it. Obviously, you had kind of the same background at Purdue as Jason did. So what are some of the things that you do to get this program started? How do you implement it?
Well, first off, this is a lot of trial and error things. We've used a lot of experience that we've had at Purdue, but we've got kids in our program that are very malnourished in terms of their eating habits. And with a school of 70% free and reduced lunch, our socioeconomic status here at this school, tells us that there's kids who aren't getting the proper nutrition they need. And how can we expect these kids to perform at the highest peak if they're running around the practice field on empty stomachs? Mm-hmm. So really what we started with was an education program. Education was something that some of our kids needed in terms of nutrition. Some of our kids had never seen broccoli before. Some of our kids had never seen pineapple before.
Wow.
So it was a big eye-opener for us.
Talking with Jason Strunk and Neil Toll. Jason, the head coach at Lubbock, Neil, the assistant coach and head of nutrition there. Now, let's stick with you, Neil, for 1 second here. One of the biggest questions I have is, okay, so you guys did it at Purdue. That's a Big Ten school. We understand budgets in the NCAA at that level. So how do you kind of translate that down to the high school level?
Well, we have a great booster staff and we have a great assistant coaching staff, and they've really done things above and beyond, trying to help our kids understand the importance of nutrition in terms of what they need to eat, when they need to eat, and it's really gone downhill since we started. You know, we've had kids that didn't know when they should eat. They didn't know that they should eat right after working out. That we've had kids that didn't know that a fried chicken dinner after a game is probably not one of the best things that your body needs at that time. So one of the things that we talked about with our booster club and with our travel budget is we've basically gone from having a fried chicken and biscuit dinner after a game or pizza after a game to having healthier options, so that we know that they just worked very hard for 3 hours, trying to get us wins, getting us the wins, and they're exhausted physically and mentally. Well, they need the proper nutrition to refuel their bodies so that they can go the next week. And if they didn't have that, if they had the fried chicken after the game, then that sets their bodies back, a day or two from recovery. When if they get the proper protein and carbohydrates that they need right post-workout, then their bodies are refueled, ready to go for a Saturday morning film session, Saturday morning weightlifting session. So that's kind of how we got started with things, and then went into the nutritional program after that.
So you're actually educating adults as well. We're talking with Lubbock head football coach Jason Strunk and his assistant coach and nutrition coach Neil Tull tonight about nutrition as it plays into the off season and during the season. They've got a program that they've been doing for a couple of years, and you heard Jason say, they made the playoffs because nutrition was an important part of that. He's written about it, has Coach Tull on the blog at highschoolfootballamerica.com, the turnaround. So please feel free to check that out. We'll tweet it out during the show here in a few moments. But Jason, let's get back to you. How hard of a sell was it to the kids? I mean, you would think when you say, "Hey kids, we're going to feed you," they're going to be excited. But then all of a sudden you're bringing in pineapple and not fried chicken. So what was that like?
Well, it wasn't hard to sell them on the fact that they need to eat. That's always, the easy part. If I would have said I was bringing in 400 Big Macs, it would have been ecstatic. But I said, hey, we're going to show you some different options, things that, your parents can buy at home and whatnot. Like Coach Tull said, we showed them pineapple and broccoli. Or, kids were like, what the heck is that? I couldn't believe we had kids that never ate broccoli, or pineapple for that matter. So it was a lot of trial and error. We'd do a taste test, and lo and behold, we found out like 95% of our football team loves pineapple, and they never ate it before. So the next thing you know, we have parents buying pineapple. They're bringing pineapple in after school. Parents supplying it for them. And the kids are eating their own healthy post-workout nutrition that they brought on their own. So the parents have bought into it too, which is really neat. And the parents help us provide, the food these kids need for after workout. It's a pretty, it's like an individual thing. Coach Tull, which he didn't get into, but he actually makes the diet for the kids. Has it broken down so scientifically we know how many calories each kid needs to gain weight. We put a lot of work into it, and the kids, once we tell them everything and do everything, they have to follow through on their own. They have been. We've had kids gain 30 pounds of lean muscle mass. So they're listening to what we're saying, and we try to demonstrate and show them examples of proper nutrition. They've taken it and run with it. And they actually yell at me now. If they see me stop at McDonald's, they get all over me for it, So I'd say, hey, I'm 36. I'm out of shape. It doesn't matter for me. But, they give me some good grief on it, which is good. So.
Well, you're the type of coach that can take it. We're talking with Jason Strunk and right. Neil Tull. Let's talk, Neil, about the specialization that you're doing here. And before we get into that, one of the things you wrote in the blog, which kind of blew me away, you did kind of that survey where you said how many times a week do you eat breakfast, how many times do you eat lunch, and then one of the notes you had in the story was that at least 20 of your players were going without eating for 8 hours before practice, which kind of set me off where I couldn't believe that would happen. But let's talk about that fact and then get into the specialization. 8 hours without going into a practice without food, that is not healthy at any level, correct?
Correct, absolutely. It's one of the things that, sometimes when we as coaches don't see the numbers that we want, we start to question, was this kid working hard today? Or was he giving it his all? And, the base of that question is, we overlook is, was he physically able to perform at a high level? So when these kids are saying that they weren't eating lunch either due to choice, they didn't like the cafeteria food, or they couldn't afford. They couldn't afford to go get lunch. That was a big issue. So when we developed our nutritional education program, we definitely talked about, every single day they need to wake up and get something to eat. Every single day they need to have something in their system at lunch so that when they come to us in the afternoon for athletic period, their bodies are ready to go. Their bodies are ready to perform at a high level. And it's not just, your muscles or your heart or your lungs or anything like that. One of the more important parts is your brain. I mean, if the kids didn't have the proper nutrition, their brain function shuts down too. I mean, it slows them down incredibly. So that was a big part of the education program. And in terms of our diet and our individualized diet, I mean, it's a little technical, and I guess this portion of your show is going to be brought to you by Mass. We definitely did a ton of research. We talked with people at Texas Tech University. We tried to get as much information as we could to develop a framework from which the players could judge their eating habits on a daily basis, and that included finding out their basal metabolic rates, and then we multiply the basal metabolic rate by the Harris-Benedict equation, which is an activity factor, and then that tells the kids how many calories that they need to be eating per day in order to maintain their current weight. And then from there, we just basically tell them they need to add 500 calories a day if they want to gain a pound a week. If they want to lose a pound a week, they take away 500 calories. So the kids pretty much at this point know how many calories they need to eat, and many of them hit their target. Many of them know when they've missed their target, and it's almost become, I guess, the kids take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say the kids definitely know when and when they're meeting their caloric needs.
Yeah, kind of like the same thing that happens in the weight room. If you know you're not hitting your bench numbers or whatever, it kind of stands out there. We're talking with Neil Toll, nutrition coach, assistant coach at Lubbock High, with Jason Strunk, who writes the turnaround for us. He's the head coach there. And by the way, Jason, I'm going to throw a little crack at you right now. After that, the basal metabolic rates and the Harris-Benedict formula, I knew that had to be someone other than you doing that. There's no way you could figure all that stuff out. You got too many X's and O's in your brain.
Yeah, that's way above my pay grade. There's no doubt about that. That's a Purdue guy speaking, a Purdue grad speaking. I only coach football, though. So he's one up on me in that front.
Well, let's throw another question here at Neil. Neil, we heard Jason say at the top that he believes that the nutrition program had a direct benefit, which was breaking the streak of not being in the playoffs for 37 years. Can you kind of drill it down a little bit more? How important is this nutrition in the end result that is seen on a Friday or a Saturday?
Well, first and foremost, all our work put in during the week, that's what you prepare for the game. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, as the old cliche is said. But these kids needed to practice at a high level if we expected them to perform at a high level in a game for 3 hours. And we're a spread no huddle offense, so our goal is to get anywhere between 70 to 85 snaps per game on offense. And those 6-second bursts over a 3-hour period, that can wear you down physically and mentally. So the first part of it is making sure that they are properly fueled throughout the week so that they can practice well, they can understand the game plan. They're not tired watching film. They're not falling asleep watching film. They're alert because their bodies are still full of energy. And then when we get to the game day, we've got in the past here, there's been a lot of, undersight on what the kids were eating before a game. Kids would go to McDonald's before a game because it's the cheapest. They could get 2 or 3 double cheeseburgers, and they'd go to a game. Well, now the kids understand that they need a proper mix of fruit, vegetables, carbohydrates, and protein at least 3 or 4 hours before a game so that they can sustain their high level over the course of the entire game. And it really has it. The first year here, our players were tired in the fourth quarter. This year they had the gas that they could go 2 or 3 overtimes if they needed to. And that is such an advantage and such an edge when you're talking about high school athletics. And it's something that I think Coach Strunk has done a great job leading us in this direction. And it's something that's definitely paid dividends for us.
No, I definitely think that is, and I know that one of the first times we talked last year before you started writing, Jason, you talked about the nutrition program, so it's great to have it on here, especially with the number of coaches we have listened to this show. I think a lot of them, you may have some tweets coming at you asking some questions there, because the off season is about the weight room, and we talked a little bit about that, I think, about a month ago when you were on the show here, and you touched on it earlier about the building of lean muscle mass and all that. So can you kind of give us that equation, what you've seen, how does it help a student athlete, by eating properly and then being in your weight room here during the off season? Where do you see the energy? Where do you see the, is it more reps? Is it just, kind of can make it through the whole repetition without much problem? Kind of equate that for coaches.
Well, I think, we had kids that were just completely undersized. And here's an example. Bam Jackson, who I wrote about a lot this year in the blog, our wide receiver, number 8. When teams watched film on us this year, they knew they needed to stop number 8. The year before, when Bam was a junior, Bam weighed 155 pounds and caught maybe 23 passes. Well, he went through the entire offseason, packed on, I would say, Coach Tull probably knows this better than I do, but I think he packed on, let's say, 20 to 25 pounds of lean muscle mass. So next thing you know, we have Bam Jackson playing wide receiver for us at 175, maybe 180. And ends up having 73 receptions this year and close to 1,000 yards. That you can see the correlation from nutrition, weight room. You could see all that translate on the performance on the field. He was quicker, faster. He was more durable. Didn't get hurt. The year before he had a hip injury and he was always banged up. So eliminated injuries on his part. He was just a completely different player, energy-wise. Fourth quarter. He catches balls over the middle. He's catching balls yet low on his shoulder, running people over. It was incredible. So that's just one example of a kid. Another kid, Keith Gallagher, our safety, had, I think he won the Black Hammer Award this year, had tremendous knockout shots playing safety. He probably gained 30 pounds of lean muscle mass. It was just incredible. You can see it translating in everything they do. Mm-hmm. Without it, like I said, we're not in the playoffs last year. Just those two guys alone and how they transform their bodies really helped translate or transform the whole team into a playoff team.
Talking with Jason Strunk and Neil Toll, Lubbock High School in West Texas. Jason, here's a question for you, which is, again, you've been doing this for a while now in your programs, but is this something that, as you talk to coaches, you hear that's kind of getting more and more important, or is it, still not kind of the norm?
Well, I don't think it is the norm. I don't know if it ever will be. It's just there's so many factors. It's what you make a priority. And I always say this to my guys. If I'm at South Lake Carroll, do we need to focus on nutrition at South Lake Carroll like we do here? Mm-hmm. The answer is probably not. We're just a different socioeconomic environment, different kids. We need to go to great lengths on the nutrition side of things to get our kids ready to play. South Lake Carroll, they may have more resources, from parental advantages, whatever you want to call that. So here, it's what we need to do here. And that's why I don't know if it'll ever catch on totally, with a bunch of other high schools. But I will tell you this, no matter what you do and no matter what high school you are, no matter how much money you have or what you're doing, if you're not getting the proper nutrition after workouts, you're wasting your workout. That goes for no matter wherever you are. South Lake Carroll, Lubbock High, wherever. If you're not getting the proper nutrition after a workout, it's a wasted workout. You need to get that stuff back in your body within 15 minutes of the workout. If you're not doing that, you're really not doing your body any good. So I'm hoping, catches on in other places. Hopefully people don't catch on and start, using our ideas and beating us with it. But I don't want that. But it'd be nice if it did catch on, because it's a top priority here. It's what we have to do to compete.
Yeah, the economy is not just tough in one area; it's all over the country. Neil, I'll give you the last word, and kind of your thoughts on that, and whether you think this is something that will 10, 15 years down the road be something that's important, or is everybody going to kind of limp along and use the system like he said, where a couple of cheeseburgers before and after the game is okay?
Well, I've talked to a lot of older coaches who've been around and have a lot more experience than I have. And, 20, 25 years ago, lifting weights wasn't really a priority in high school. And pretty soon people figured out that, if you lift weights, you'll get stronger, you'll get faster, you'll get more explosive. And the same thing, I hope, would happen here. And with the nutrition aspect here, it's not just about, the kids performing well in football. If they're properly fueled and ready to go each day, it's going to affect their grades as well. So, I talk to my parents quite a bit, and, one of the things that my mom even points out to me is that, we aren't just changing kids just for high school. We're helping them to develop nutritional habits that hopefully can last a lifetime. Mm-hmm. So there's long-range benefits here just to teaching our nutrition to our kids. And it's something that I really hope catches on, and especially in this environment where you have kids of low socioeconomic status, single-parent households where their parents working and, the kids just eat whatever's in the house. Making good nutritional choices is going to help out tremendously in high school athletics, and then you're going to start seeing kids perform higher and higher and higher. But on top of that, I'm hoping that it's definitely going to change lives in the long run, and that's one of the reasons why we all coach. So, is to help kids have a better life, and I think nutritionally, it's going to help them now. It's going to help them in the long run.
Well, Coach, really appreciate you taking the time to write this for us on the blog this week. It is very, very important, and you're right. It goes beyond football. It can change lives for decades to come. So it's by having you on the show here, I can see why Jason speaks so highly of his staff, and we just really appreciate everything that Lubbock does for us here at High School Football America, and hopefully we educated some coaches around the country or some players, whoever's listening tonight. So thank you for doing that. Same thing, Jason. Always appreciate your time. Great work, and keep it up.
Yeah, and thanks for letting us do this. We love it. We're starting to make a lot of connections on Twitter through you and other people, and that's great. It's helping us out.
Really appreciate it. Going to take a break, folks. When we come back, going to go around the nation, check out news from the week that's been. That and more. You're listening to High School Football America, brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes on the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
Welcome back to High School Football America. I'm Jeff Fisher. This segment brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. Well, we've been talking about this one several times here on the show. It all began when Louisiana voted to separate the publics and the private schools, separate championships in Louisiana coming up this year. Ohio was expected to vote on it in May, but now a special petition has been approved that takes the Ohio High School Athletic Association's May ballot initiative off of the ballot. So for now, There will not be a split of public and privates. Instead, what they're going to look at, the membership in Ohio will look at, is a kind of a competition multiplier that will take a look at what the school's initial enrollment is and then multiply it out by the number of students on a team's roster that are from outside of the school district or a designated attendance zone. Of course, this goes right back to the question of the private schools being able to bring in players from outside the area. So now the Ohio High School Athletic Association's membership will not be voting on a split. They will instead be looking at a multiplier system that will hopefully keep the sides together. If this system is approved, the proposal for the multiplier system wouldn't go into effect until right now, reportedly, the 2015-2016 school year. A bill in Illinois that would have limited full contact practices to once per week has died in a Illinois House committee. Last week, State Representative Carol Sent, who introduced the legislation, announced that the bill just had a lot of problems, and there is a similar bill that's being debated in Texas. We've had State Representative Eddie Lucio III on the show talking about his bill, and you can listen to that interview by going back into our archives, by going to highschoolfootballamerica.com and clicking on the radio shows tab. But back to Illinois, Carol Sent's bill, which went in limiting full contact practices to once a week, was debated, changed a lot. It did not have the support of the Illinois High School Association. In the end, the committee, which is the House Elementary and Secondary Education Committee, voted on a bill that would have limited full contact hitting to twice per week. Didn't get enough support, so the bill died in committee. The Illinois High School Athletic Association, as I said, didn't support the bill, but now they're going to address the practice procedures at a meeting coming up in mid-April. State Representative Sent has indicated that she will continue to push for a rule change, especially at the youth level, but big decision in Illinois. We'll see how that affects everything in the state of Texas. And we wrap up in New Jersey, where they're going to try again. New Jersey, one of a few states that does not have a true statewide playoff system. You remember that Massachusetts just adopted one last year. Well, New Jersey's going to try it again. They have sectional championships, and really at the end of the day, that's an 18 tournament at the end of the year and really doesn't determine much of anything. But if at first you don't succeed, try again, and that can be applied to what they're trying to do in New Jersey. For the second time in 3 years, coaches and athletic directors working on a proposal that would pave the way for a change to the state's athletics constitution, and that would allow them to then try and create a playoff system that would crown an overall group state champion in football. There are 5 championship groups in the state of New Jersey for public schools, and then there are 4 for the private schools. Last Wednesday, a new proposal to amend the bylaw of the New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association's constitution was presented at the state's annual athletic directors convention in Atlantic City. The proposal doesn't change the start or the end dates to the current season format, which is good and very important. It keeps the Thanksgiving Day games intact. Those traditional games will remain, and then they'll go with an 8-game regular season with the option for 2 consolation games for teams that don't make the playoffs. While it's possible that the new proposal may be tweaked, it is expected that the schools will vote on amending the New Jersey Constitution for athletics this coming December. In order to change the Constitution, 2/3 of the schools must vote in favor of it. Now, back in 2011, a proposal to amend the Constitution was defeated when only 167 schools voted in favor. 190 votes were needed to change the Constitution at that point. So that's a look at news from around the nation. Going to take a break. When we come back, going to bring in Kevin DeShazo from Fieldhouse Media. He's going to talk about social media and the student athletes and their coaches. That story when we come back. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
This portion of High School Football America brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. Well, as we said at the top of the show tonight, taking some time here during the off season to do a lot of educational stuff. And earlier in the show, you heard Jason Strunk and Neil Toll talk about nutrition and the importance of nutrition and their kind of cutting-edge program they have in Lubbock, Texas. We're going to kind of stay down in that part of the country as we're going to go to Oklahoma now and educate you a little bit on a topic that is getting more and more and more spotlight on it. It will continue to grow as social media grows. We're talking about Twitter, Facebook, all of those things, and came across a young man who's doing some special things to help educate student athletes out there. His name is Kevin DeShazo, the founder of Fieldhouse Media, which can be found at fieldhousemedia.net, providing social media education and monitoring services for the student athletes and coaches and equipping them for a development of a positive online reputation. Kevin's here to talk about what's going on in social media and how it can be impactful on the student athlete. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Jeff. Excited to be here with you.
Yeah, well, you know, as I said, you're kind of on the cutting edge. This is not going away. I mean, we hear it every day. You know, somebody said something stupid in social media is usually the way we hear it. But your take is, you know, there's a positive to all of this. But before we get into kind of the do's and don'ts, let's talk a little bit about Fieldhouse Media and its development, its evolution, how you came up with the idea, and exactly what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a sports fan, but started really using social media quite heavily 2 to 3 years ago, and obviously kept seeing article after article of athletes and of student athletes creating negative headlines or controversy around the way that they were using social media. And so the idea came to me that, okay, somebody needs to be helping these young men and women understand just how public social media is, just how powerful social media is, because Twitter is not the bad guy. You know, we see coaches and administrators respond by banning it, or a variety of different ways, trying to restrict what they say, restrict how they use it. And social media doesn't have to be the bad guy. It can be a really powerful tool if they understand how to use it well. And they know how to use it because they've grown up using these platforms. But that doesn't mean they understand just how public they are, how powerful they are, how beneficial they can be. And so Fieldhouse, we come in and we spend time with student athletes and coaches and athletic staff, helping them understand what it means to use social media with a purpose, and in a positive and intentional way, and what that looks like.
Talking with Kevin DeShazo tonight on High School Football America from Fieldhouse Media. It's fieldhousemedia.net. Talking about social media and the use by student athletes and coaches. Where is the good and the bad at this moment?
Yeah, with the good, it's starting to change because athletic departments are starting to embrace it from their side, from a marketing perspective. And so they're seeing, okay, social media is powerful for us. This is where our fans are. I saw a statistic or a tweet that came out of a sports conference a couple of months ago that said 41% of tweets that have to do with sports programming on TV, 41% of sports TV tweets, and only 1% of TV programming is actually sports. So sports is driving social media, and athletic departments are realizing that, so they're using Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest and now Vine and all these platforms. And I had an athletic director or school president one day tell me, he said, you know, athletics is a window into a university, which is true. And social media is kind of the front porch of that. And so schools are using that, but now they're also realizing, okay, our student athletes are the most public figures we have. They're the most public brand ambassadors that we have. And so they're using these platforms. Why can't we use that to our advantage, which also then helps the student athletes? So schools, they're starting to be more proactive with it. They're starting to see some of the value. You've got University of Washington. They have what they call the featured athlete, featured student athlete, and they will create an entire brand for a student athlete online, give them a branded Twitter profile picture, a Twitter page, and they'll share updates from specific students that they trust to use social media well. So that creates kind of a competition and somewhat jealousy of student athletes who aren't being featured. They say, well, why am I not featured? So that leads to a conversation of, you know, we trust what this person is saying, going to say online, how they're going to represent themselves and the university. If you start using social media differently, we'd be happy to have you as a featured athlete. So that's some of the good things that the programs are starting to see the value. We're trying to take the fear out of it because of, you know, they ban it or they ignore it because of a lack of fear, or because of fear or a lack of education. And the more we can educate them on the positive uses and values of social media, and kind of the more that fear goes away. The bad, we're still seeing a lot of student athletes that just don't don't understand how powerful it is. And a survey came out last month, maybe early this month, of athletic administrators, and over 50% say that they're not educating student athletes on social media. And so we're just inviting chaos. We want to hold them accountable, which we have to. They're young men and women. They have to be responsible for their decisions. But we can't get too upset with them if we're not being intentional and proactive with showing them why their social media use is important and how they use it is important. And so we're still going to have controversy. Like with Johnny Manziel tweeting out pictures in a casino. It wasn't a bad picture, wasn't inappropriate, but it just invited controversy. And so we have to help them understand, everything you do is impacting your reputation. Let's be intentional with how we're building that.
Talking with Kevin DeShazo tonight at Fieldhouse Media, helping student athletes and coaches with education when it comes to social media and monitoring. Let's talk about some different scenarios here. Let's talk about the student athlete that right now does not have a Twitter account, but is thinking about having one. Maybe he's being highly recruited. Maybe he just wants to kind of be out there with his friends on the team and all that. What would be a couple of nuggets you would give him as, this is the do when you start a Twitter account? And then we'll go into what are the don'ts.
Yeah, number one, I would say use an appropriate picture. A lot of teens think social media is fun. It's just a tool that they're out talking with their friends. And they don't think about having essentially professional online presence. And again, they're 16, 17, 18 years old. I wouldn't be thinking that way either. But having a professional or an appropriate picture, have a shirt on, maybe your picture can be you in your team jersey. Having an appropriate Twitter name. A lot of Big Daddy 47 or Big Balla 82. That's fun, not necessarily inappropriate, but be more mature than that, because employers, at some point recruiters are looking at this, employers are going to look at this, and they reflect on your character and your maturity. So from the very basic thing of having an appropriate picture, an appropriate Twitter handle, and one thing I would suggest student athletes do is get on social media and follow people before you ever start tweeting. Follow local media. If you're a high school student athlete, follow people that are covering high school sports in your area. Follow college coaches in your area. Follow business leaders in your area. Ask your mom and dad who those people are. Ask your coaches who they are. Follow your own coaches and learn and listen before diving into it. Because it's easy just to type out 140 characters and hit send without adding any value. So follow other people, see how they're using it, and then think, okay, I'm a high school student athlete. I want to be noticed. How can I do that? So maybe tweeting out, if you've got highlight videos, tweeting those out. Tweeting those to college coaches. But taking steps, everything needs to be intentional. Have a plan with how you're using it, not just having fun, right? Twitter's not a toy. It's a tool, and it's a very, very public tool. But having a plan for branding themselves, which almost sounds dirty, because we're talking about creating a brand for a young man or young woman, but that's the world we live in. And so being intentional with building that brand.
It's funny, and not a big quoter of Jim Rome, but I heard him say one time after a professional athlete tweeted something that was inappropriate, he said, guys, you got to start thinking about Twitter as a loaded gun before you hit that send button. It's sort of like the trigger. You got to realize that once you send it there, it can cause some damage out there. I thought that was a pretty good analogy. We're talking with Kevin DeShazo of Fieldhouse Media tonight, fieldhousemedia.net, helping student athletes with social media education, also coaches. Now let's talk about the student athlete that has an account. We've seen some players out there. I thought it was interesting yesterday that Stanford's head football coach said, one of the things I'm looking for are well-spoken young men when it comes in, which may cause a little controversy as we go down. But, we've seen some kids not get recruited for putting certain things out there on the social media. What if you're a kid that's kind of maybe put some things out there that, now in hindsight you shouldn't have done? How do you kind of clean that up? Do you have any kind of tips?
Great question. And I actually had a student athlete in a recent session ask that same question. He said, I've made some mistakes. How do I fix that? Because the internet, it's there forever. I think there are two ways. Number one is start changing today how you use it, because you can change your history. And if you can show that you've learned how to use social media well and acknowledge that you've made some mistakes, maybe a coach brings it up. Says, hey, what's this all about? And you can say, I made some poor decisions. I didn't realize just how public social media was. I didn't realize what that was doing to my reputation. But through a number of events, I did realize it. And so I've taken the necessary steps to change how I use it. Look how I've been using it, for the last X amount of weeks or months. Look how I've changed the way I've used it. I've learned my lesson, and coaches respond to that. Those are things that they want to see because they know that a 16, 17-year-old is going to make mistakes. But how have they responded to that, or have they had the humility to say, you know what, this is more, it's bigger than me. I need to change some things. It is a big deal. Number two, you can create a new Twitter account, which is somewhat of a drastic step, but create a new account with a new Twitter name, delete the old one, and start a new brand. Right, start a new you. You can follow all the same people, and maybe need to be a little wiser with who you're following. But you can tell your friends, hey, I'm creating a new account, follow me here, and start fresh.
Now, you're working with a lot of colleges, as you said, and that's obviously, what the goal is for a lot of these young men and all that. So how seriously do college coaches and colleges in general look at a Twitter account? I think I know the answer, but I want to toss you this softball to kind of, put the fear of something into these student athletes to let them know that, yeah, there are people watching this.
Oh, it's growing every day. I mean, I will, from the Fieldhouse account, retweet almost weekly coaches at every level who will send out a tweet. Man, had a great young man, had a great young woman, very talented. We chose not to recruit them because of what we saw on their social media profiles. And it's not just small programs, right? We've seen it from Michigan to Tennessee. Every large program, this is something that they're looking at now, because again, like Coach Shaw said at Stanford, they're looking for character. Yes, they want student athletes that can play, but they can get people that will fit into their system that have skills. Mm-hmm. But they also want character because it's a new game, right? Student athletes are more public than they've ever been. They need people who are going to represent the team, the coaches, and the university brand in a positive way. And so it's cost numerous young men and young women scholarships. The most famous case, of course, being Uri Wright. He was a 4-star cornerback out of Don Bosco in New Jersey. He had offers from a number of schools, including Michigan, I believe Notre Dame, Rutgers, South Carolina, Auburn, and a blog that nobody had really heard of at the time got a hold of his Twitter account. He had a private Twitter account, but he had a lot of inappropriate things that he had tweeted of a sexual nature, racially inappropriate, profanity, and this blog took a screenshot of several of his tweets. That became very public. His private Twitter account clearly then became public, and schools started withdrawing their offers. Reportedly, no school came out and directly said this, but reportedly, because they now were assuming a risk of bringing him onto campus to represent their organization. Now, Colorado ended up signing him, so good for Colorado for giving him a second chance, and good for him for getting a chance to play at the D1 level. But Colorado is a D1 program, but when you're looking at Michigan, you're looking at Notre Dame, which is a national power, South Carolina, these teams that are in the headlines in top 25 consistently, he may have hurt his chances by having to go to Colorado. And again, that's not taking a shot at Colorado, but it's a different level of program as we stand today.
Now let's flip it to the other side. I have a close friend, a head coach out here in Southern California, a very good program with several top Division I athletes on it, and he's decided that he is going to, he has already opened a Twitter account to monitor his athletes. He said, there was a lot of stuff going on out there. I wanted to be aware of it. And one of the things that he told me was, one of his student athletes was following a Twitter account that had to do with marijuana. He was retweeting something about that. And he said, Jeff, what do you think? Am I doing the right thing? And I applauded him for it. I said, I think you're absolutely doing the right thing. What's your take, Kevin?
Kudos to that coach for being proactive. Too many coaches today want to put their head in the sand, say, I don't understand it. I'm afraid of it. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I don't like it. And they ignore it. And it's 2013. That's not really an excuse anymore. So kudos to him for stepping up and being proactive and getting involved with social media and with his players. Number one, I think that's what you need to do is create a Twitter account and follow them. Know what they're saying online. The majority of them, they have very public Twitter accounts. So them know what they're saying and be proactive in those steps. Because you can't have conversations about it if you're not using these platforms yourself. If you're ignorant about these platforms and what Twitter really is, and how public it really is, and how powerful it can be, you can't really have an effective conversation. If you're not using it, your conversation turns to what not to do. Instead of saying, look, let's talk about building a positive brand for you and a positive reputation for you, it turns into a don't do this, don't tweet this, don't post this, and a laundry list of things not to do. Mm-hmm. And people don't change for the sake of compliance. They change when they have a purpose on how they need to do something or how they need to use something. And so that comes from talking with them about how to build a positive brand and why that matters. That's how we educate. That's how we change behavior. And so that's what it comes down to for coaches. Number one, getting involved themselves. That doesn't mean they have to spend 10 hours a day on Twitter. They can use it for 10 minutes a day and know what their players are saying, know what's going on in the world, interact with other coaches. But then that just comes down to having conversations on a consistent basis at a team level and on an individual level. Maybe discipline is involved, but most of the time it's just about having conversations, because what they put out is a reflection of them. If they're retweeting something about marijuana use, maybe they don't smoke, but the world's going to think that they do, based off of them, the fact that A, they follow that type of account, and B, that they're going to retweet or reshare something from that account. That's a reflection on that young man or young woman, regardless of how they're actually living their life. That's the reputation that they're giving themselves. And the NCAA has suspended actually 2 student athletes last year over the use of the N-word. One kid tweeted it, another kid retweeted it. Retweeting it is essentially coming from your account. It might as well be your words. And a lot of student athletes don't realize that. They just think it's a funny tweet, and so they share it. They think that it's funny, and their friends need to know about it, not realizing that they're essentially endorsing whatever's in that original tweet.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to share some of these great thoughts with our audience. It's really important. We want to kind of use you down the road as things come up. But thank you so much. Let's give one more plug here. What's the best way, if a coach or a student athlete is listening right now, what's the best way to contact you?
That website is fieldhousemedia.net, on Twitter at fieldhousemedia, or if they want to directly contact me, I'm on Twitter at Kevin DeShazo.
Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Time to wrap up High School Football America tonight. I'm Jeff Fisher, wanting to thank you for listening tonight, and also thanking Kellogg's Frosted Flakes for making it all possible. They appreciate you for tuning in each and every Thursday and letting us share these great high school football stories with you. And they want to remind you that, like football, Frosted Flakes is another passion that you can share with your kids. Dads, get out there in the front yard, get out there in the park, toss the football around, and share your love of the game with the kids. And then when you're done with that, why not hop back into the kitchen there and pour yourself a nice bowl of Frosted Flakes. Again, Frosted Flakes, proud sponsor of High School Football America. Want to thank our 3 guests on the show tonight, Kevin Strunk and Neil Toll, the head coach and assistant coach at Lubbock, Texas. Coach Strunk and Toll wrote a great piece on the turnaround about nutrition. And if you missed any of tonight's show, remember, you can listen to it in our archives at highschoolfootballamerica.com. Also want to thank Kevin DeShazo from Fieldhouse Media, fieldhousemedia.net. Great information on what student athletes should do with their Twitter accounts, how to do it the right way and not, get yourself in trouble. And we've seen and heard how that can happen across the country. And it's not going to get any easier, folks. Coaches are going to be scrutinizing more and more at the college level, so why not get it going in the right way today? Want to remind everybody to follow us on Twitter, HSFB America. You can join the entire High School Football America family by going to highschoolfootballamerica.com and clicking on the icons. We've got our YouTube channel, Facebook, Pinterest. Join our newsletter, all of those things for you. Right at highschoolfootballamerica.com. Want to thank Corey King back in Ohio for keeping the show running ever so smoothly. Talk to you again next week, but for now, this is Jeff Fisher saying good night and good sports from Laguna Beach. You've been listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.